I have a wild story to share. It so happened when I was a kid. Growing up on the outskirts of the Navajo Nation, my family, like many others, still follows a lot of traditions that pass down through the generations. And one of the tradition was we always spend our Christmas Eve at my grandparents' cabin. The cabin was in a remote part of the reservation. It was always peaceful, a place to escape the chaos of the modern world. But that Christmas, it was different. And I will tell you right now, I have never been able to shake that feeling about what happened that night. It was as if the holiday was cursed. It all started peacefully enough. It was Christmas Eve, and we were getting ready to enjoy our big family dinner at my grandparents' cabin. My uncles had killed a couple of deer early in the week, and my grandmother had spent the last 2 days making the traditional feast. Roasted meat, fried bread, and of course, load of chili. As kids, we were more excited about the presents than the food. But my grandparents loved having all of them, so they made sure everything was in perfect shape. The cabin was isolated, no neighbors for miles, and the nearest town was a good hour's drive away. We were used to the silence that came with the remoteness of the place. But it was a silence that felt heavy, almost suffocating, especially after the dark. After dinner, my cousins and I ran outside to play in the snow, just like we always did. I was probably around 14 at the time, so I wasn't that the youngest among us. But I was still pretty eager to be outside, away from the adults. We were out there for a while, laughing, throwing snowballs at each other, and enjoying the cold air. Suddenly, I noticed something strange. At first, it seemed like a shadow blending into the forest behind the cabin. After noticing that, I quit playing. Then I went to look even closer. Then I realized it wasn't just the trees casting the shadows. There was something moving out there, just outside the light from the cabin. I didn't say anything right away. You know, how do you get the feeling that something off? But you can't quite place your finger on it. Well, that was how I felt at the moment. I figured it was just a normal animal, maybe a coyote or something. But then it moved again, slowly, too slowly and precise for an animal I ever seen before. I didn't want to freak out my cousins, so I just quietly stepped closer to the house and glanced over my shoulder. The thing in the woods hadn't moved from this position, but it felt like it was watching us. I tried to shrug it off, thinking maybe it was just my mind playing trick on me. But I couldn't shake that unease of a feeling I felt that time. Then something bizarre happened. One of my younger cousins, a little girl named Emily, suddenly turned to look in the same direction and gasped. And she yelled, "There's a man in the trees." Everyone froze, and I swear I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I turned around, my breath coming faster, and there, standing between two pine trees at the edge of the woods, was a figure. A man? Or at least it looked like a man. Its outline was almost too perfect, like something straight out of a nightmare. But that wasn't the worst part. His face. His face was wrong. It was like someone had stretched human features over a dark animal-like face. It was too wide, with an unnatural, grotesque grin. His eyes were too dark, empty voids staring at us, and they seemed shimmer in the moonlight. I wasn't sure how long we stared at each other. Maybe it was just seconds, but it felt like hours. Then suddenly, the figure turned and ran into the woods with a speed that I could have imagined. It was like it wasn't even human anymore. The way it's run was terrifying. We all ran inside the cabin in a panic, slamming the door behind us. My heart pounding in my chest. I tried to tell myself it was just some crazy person, maybe a drifter who had wandered too far out of the way. But deep down, I knew it wasn't human. We locked our door, huddled in the living room, trying to make sense of what we had just seen. My uncle, who was a Navajo elder, didn't say much, but I saw the look in his eyes. He knew something wasn't right. He motioned us for stay quiet and keep calm, but the terror in his voice was unmistakable. "Skinwalker," he muttered under his breath. The word hit like a slap in the face. Skinwalker. In my community, we were always told about them, tales passed down through generations, but I never thought I will encounter one, especially not on a Christmas Eve. A skinwalker, for those who doesn't know, is a shape-shifting witch from Navajo folklore, someone who can take the form of any animal, even a person. But it's not just the ability to shift that makes them terrifying. It's their evil intent. They're said to practice dark magic and are capable of possessing and controlling others. My uncle didn't explain much further, but it was clear whatever we had seen out there wasn't human. That night, we didn't sleep. My uncle kept watching from the window, but nothing happened. It was dead quiet out there. After what felt like an eternity, we finally decided to leave the cabin early in the morning. Looking back, I'm still haunted by that night. The way the figure looked at me, like it knew something I didn't, like it was waiting for something. Every year, when Christmas Eve rolls around, I get that cold feeling again, and I can't help but wonder if the Skinwalker is still out there, waiting. So yeah, that's my story, and it's one I will never forget. So, if you're out there, keep an eye out. and be careful. Hello guys, if you like this kind of videos and want to hear more, consider subscribing to this channel and also check out other videos on this channel too. Like them, share them. Now, back to the story. Last summer, I embarked on a camping trip with my faithful companion, Emily, in a remote national park few miles from my home. It was meant to be a bonding experience in the nature, but what we encountered on the trail would test our courage and resilience in a way I never imagined. The day began with clear skies and a sense of adventure in the air. I packed our gear carefully, a sturdy tent, sleeping bags, food for both of us, and essential for hiking. Emily, my energetic Labrador, wagged her tail enthusiastically, as if her sensed the upcoming adventure. So we started our journey. The drive was uneventful. Emily and I sat on our seats listening to music and podcasts. Then we arrived at the trailhead early in the morning. The park was serene and teeming with life. Birds chirped overhead, and the scent of pine filled the crisp mountain air. Emily bounded ahead on her leash, her nose eagerly sniffing every bush and tree along the trail. The path wound through dense forests and rocky outcrops, offering a glimpse of breathtaking visuals and babbling brooks. Emily trotted beside me, occasionally stopping to investigate interesting scents or chase after a small animal that darted across our path. As we hiked deeper into the wilderness, the sound of civilization faded away, replaced by the smoothing symphony of nature, rustling leaves, distant call of wildlife, and the rush of a nearby stream. It was a perfect day for a hiking, and I relished every moment spent exploring the untamed beauty around us. By mid afternoon, we had covered several miles and were nearing the destined campsite, where we planned to spend the night. The trail narrowed and climbed steadily uphill, testing our endurance but rewarding with us a panoramic view of surrounding mountains. As we rounded a bend in the trail, I noticed a peculiar sensation, a prickling at the back of my neck, as we were being watched. Emily, usually exuberant and curious, suddenly grew tense and began growling softly. Her hackles raised. I scanned the wood around us, half expecting to see another hiker, perhaps a curious deer. But the forest was quiet, almost unnaturally. The hairs on back of my neck stood on end as an unsettling feeling settled over me. Emily pulled on her leash, straining toward a cluster of thick bushes beside the trail. Her growl grew louder, more urgent, as if her sensed something lurking just out of sight. I gripped her leash tightly, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed through the entire tree line. It was unlike any sound I ever heard before. Deep, menacing, and filled with primal aggression. Emily barked loudly. Her protective instincts kicked into overdrive. My hand trembled as I reached for the flashlight clipped to my belt. With shaking hands, I flicked it on and aimed the beam toward the source of the growl. What I saw in there made my blood run cold. Emerging from the shadows was a creature unlike anything I had ever encountered before. It stood on its two behind legs like a man, but its body was covered in coarse fur, and its eyes glowed with an unnatural amber light. Its long limbs ended in a sharp claws that dug into the earth with each step. Emily lunged forward, barking ferociously at the creature. It responded with a primal roar that echoed through the entire forest. Shaking me to my core, I stumbled backward, heart pounding, struggling to comprehend the reality of what stood before us. In a split-second decision, fueled by adrenaline, I unclipped Emily's leash, shouted for her to run. Hesitated for a moment, eyes locked on the creature before bolting down the trail towards safety. I turned and ran after her, my mind racing with fear and panic. Behind me, I could hear the creature crashing through the underbrush in the pursuit. Its heavy footsteps echoed through the woods, growing louder with each passing second. I pushed myself to run faster, branches whipping against my arms and legs as I navigated the harsh terrain. Emily's bark echoed ahead of me, guiding my frantic flight toward the safety of the campsite. The adrenaline coursing through my veins fueled my desperate sprint, but the creature's relentless pursuit kept me on the edge, my fear driving me forward with a primal instinct to survive. As I burst into the clearing of the campsite, relief washed over me like a wave. Emily was already there, panting heavily but unharmed. I collapsed beside her, gasping for breath, tears of fear and relief streaming down my cheeks. The campsite offered a small, safety feeling from the terror of the trail. I quickly set up the tent, building a fire, huddled close to Emily for comfort. The sound of the forest were no longer a smoothing symphony. It filled with dread and fear. Every rustle of the leaves, every snap of a twig sent my heart racing anew. We spent a restless night by the fire, listening for any signs of the creature's return. Emily remained vigilant, her ears perked and her senses on high alert, but thankfully the night passed without further incidents, and the first light of dawn brought a sense of safety. As morning broke over the campsite, I packed up our gear with trembling hands. The memories of our encounter with the unknown creature haunted me, leaving me shaken and weary of the wilderness that had once been source of joy and happiness. As we hiked back toward the trailhead, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had stumbled into something beyond our understanding. A creature of legend or myth lurking in the shadows of the national park. The experience had changed me, leaving me with a newfound respect for the untamed wild and lingering fear of the unknown. So, if you ever find yourself hiking or camping in a remote wilderness with your faithful companion or solo, be mindful of the danger that lurk beyond the familiar trail. Nature is beautiful and awe-inspiring, but it can also be unforgiving and harboring secrets that defy explanation. And remember, sometimes it's not just the wildlife you need to watch out for. There are forces in the wilderness that remain unseen, waiting for unwitting travelers to cross their path. So be careful out there. Hope you guys like this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to this channel. Enable the bell icon so you don't miss new uploads. And also check out other videos in this channel too. Like them and share them. And if you have any suggestions or any improvements I need to make in this channel, please post them in the comment section. Till next time, this is Malayali Wendigo. Bye.